1975 was half a century ago. Hard to believe that some of the greatest hits we grew up with are turning 50 in 2025. These weren't just songs on the radio. They became the soundtrack to our first dates, summer road trips, and moments we'll never forget. Let's listen in. Starting with Love Will Keep Us Together by Captain and Tennille.
Love will keep us together.
This husband-wife duo actually met through the Beach Boys, where Daryl Dragon, the captain, was a keyboard player. What many don't know is that Tony Tennille practically had to drag Dragon into the spotlight. He suffered from severe anxiety and initially refused to perform in public. Their relationship began in 1971, but ABC Records originally rejected them, claiming their sound was too different from what was popular at the time. The song itself was written by Neil Sedaka and Howard Greenfield, and Dragon's distinctive keyboard sound came from a Lowrey organ he modified himself. The record label actually fought against releasing it as a single, believing it was too bubblegum for adult audiences. But Tennille stood her ground, threatening to leave the label if they didn't release it. Her instincts were right. It became the best-selling single of 1975. Here's something that might raise your eyebrows. Despite their signature love song, their marriage wasn't as perfect as their public image suggested. In her 2016 memoir, Tennille revealed that Dragon was emotionally distant throughout their 39-year marriage, and they barely spoke during their final years together. Their divorce in 2014 shocked fans who had believed in their musical message for decades. Glenn Campbell's Rhinestone Cowboy.
Rhinestone Cowboy.
Emerged during a particularly turbulent time in his career. Campbell had been struggling with cocaine addiction and had just ended his relationship with country singer Tanya Tucker, who was 22 years his junior, a scandal that rocked Nashville. Despite his personal troubles, or perhaps because of them, Campbell connected deeply with the lyrics about a struggling performer trying to make it big. The song wasn't actually written by Campbell. Larry Weiss wrote and recorded it in 1974, but it flopped completely. Campbell heard it playing on the radio during a trip to Australia and immediately identified with the story of a seasoned performer who keeps pushing forward despite setbacks. The song represented everything he was going through at the time, the glitz and glamour of show business, but also the loneliness and struggle. Did you know that Campbell initially recorded the song with a full orchestra, but then scrapped the entire recording because it didn't feel authentic enough? He brought in his touring band and recorded it again with a more stripped-down arrangement, proving that sometimes less really is more. The final version we all know and love was actually recorded in just 2 takes. Elton John's Philadelphia Freedom has a fascinating backstory that many don't know about. The song was written as a favor to tennis legend Billie Jean King, who played for the Philadelphia Freedoms team. What's controversial is that many radio stations initially refused to play it, believing it was a gay anthem due to Elton's sexuality and his close friendship with King. In reality, it had nothing to do with the gay rights movement, but the misconception actually helped boost its popularity. Bernie Taupin, Elton's longtime lyricist, initially struggled with writing the song because he knew nothing about tennis. Instead, he drew inspiration from the American bicentennial spirit of 1975 and Philadelphia's rich history. The song was recorded with members of the Wrecking Crew, the legendary session musicians who played on countless hits, though they were never credited on the record. Here's a fascinating detail. The distinctive saxophone riff wasn't in the original arrangement. It was added at the last minute when Elton heard the song played back and felt it needed something extra. He called in jazz saxophonist Tower of Power at 3 a.m. to record it. Hey guys, if these stories are bringing back memories, don't keep them to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What memories do these songs bring back for you? And if you're enjoying this trip down memory lane, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, there are plenty more fascinating music stories to come. Before the Next Teardrop Falls by Freddy Fender represents a groundbreaking moment in music history. Though it caused quite a stir at the time. Fender, born Baltimore Huerta, had actually been banned from Texas radio stations in the 1960s due to marijuana possession charges. He was working as a mechanic when this song launched him back into the spotlight, making him one of the first Mexican-American artists to achieve mainstream success in country music. The song was originally recorded in 1967 and had already been covered more than 24 times before Fender's version. Producer Huey P. Mew convinced Fender to record it in both English and Spanish, a controversial decision at the time that many radio programmers opposed. However, this bilingual approach turned out to be revolutionary. You might be surprised to learn that Fender recorded his vocals in just one take, and he actually thought that was just a practice run. When told they'd keep that version, he protested, saying he could do better. The producer refused, believing the raw emotion in that first take couldn't be replicated. Frankie Valley's My Eyes Adored You came with its own share of drama. After the 4-season split from Motown Records, no label wanted to touch this song. Valley had to personally borrow $4,000 to buy back the master recording. Labels saw Valley as a has-been, and many industry insiders mocked him for believing he could still have a hit as a solo artist in his 40s. The song's lyrics caused some controversy due to their seemingly innocent yet suggestive nature. It's about a childhood romance that never materialized, but some radio stations saw it differently. Written by Bob Crewe and Kenny Nolan, the song took almost 2 years to get released after it was recorded. Here's something most don't know. The distinctive falsetto in the chorus wasn't originally planned. Valley had a severe cold during recording and couldn't hit the notes in his normal voice. Rather than postpone the session, he switched to falsetto, creating one of his most memorable vocal performances by accident. Earth, Wind & Fire's Shining Star marked a turning point for the band, though it sparked internal tensions. Maurice White had to fight with other band members who thought the song was too commercial and strayed too far from their R&B roots. The song was actually inspired by a late-night drive through Colorado when Maurice White pulled over to look at the stars. The recording sessions were notoriously tense, with multiple arguments about the arrangement. The final version we know almost didn't happen. The original recording was much slower and had a completely different groove. Fun fact, the iconic guitar riff came from Johnny Graham playing around during a break in recording. He didn't even realize they were still recording when he played it, but White heard it and immediately stopped everything to build the song around that riff. Hey friends, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, hit that notification bell, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss our weekly deep dives into music history. David Bowie's fame emerged from a particularly contentious period in his career. By 1975, Bowie had become disillusioned with the music industry and was in the midst of a bitter dispute with his management. The song was born from a jam session with John Lennon and guitarist Carlos Alomar, initially sparked by Alomar's frustration over unpaid royalties. The recording sessions were fueled by cocaine and conflict, with Bowie later admitting he barely remembered making the album. Lennon's contribution to the song came from a conversation where he kept repeating the word fame in different intonations. The distinctive descending vocal line was recorded at different speeds and then mixed together. Here's something that might surprise you. Bowie actually hated the song for years after its release. He felt it was too commercial and resented that it became his first #1 hit in America. He rarely performed it live during the late 1970s, considering it a sellout track that didn't represent his artistic vision. The Eagles' One of These Nights came with its own share of drama.
One of these nights.
The band was dealing with serious internal tensions during the recording, particularly between Glenn Frey and Don Felder. The pressure to follow up their previous successes had created a powder keg atmosphere in the studio. Many band members were heavily into cocaine at the time, which only added to the volatile environment. Don Henley spent months perfecting the lyrics, much to the frustration of his bandmates. The song's unusual combination of disco rhythms with country rock elements was highly controversial within the band. Bernie Leadon, in particular, felt they were straying too far from their country roots, which ultimately contributed to his decision to leave the group shortly after. John Denver's Thank God I'm a Country Boy has an interesting origin story that might raise some eyebrows.
Thank God I'm a country boy.
Despite its down-home image, Denver didn't write the song. It was penned by his guitarist John Martin Summers during a bout of severe depression. The song's cheerful nature was actually Summers' attempt to pull himself out of a dark place. The recording process was complicated by Denver's perfectionism. He insisted on recording multiple versions, both studio and live, before settling on the live version recorded at the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles. Here's a surprising detail. The fiddle player on the track, Vassar Clements, actually disliked the final mix so much that he asked for his name to be removed from the credits. Of course, Denver refused, and Clements' iconic fiddle work remained a crucial part of the song's success. The Bee Gees' Jive Talkin' marked a dramatic shift in the band's sound that almost derailed their career. The brothers Gibb were nearly bankrupt when they recorded this song, and their record label had threatened to drop them if they didn't produce a hit. The song's rhythm was inspired by the sound their car made crossing the Julia Tuttle Causeway in Miami. The band initially released the song under a different name, The Sound of Miami, because radio stations were prejudiced against the Bee Gees at the time. The fake name got the song airplay before anyone realized who had recorded it. The vocal effects on Barry Gibb's voice, which became their trademark sound, were discovered by accident when a technician incorrectly set up the recording equipment. Something most people don't know? The song was almost never released because RSO Records owner Robert Stigwood thought it sounded too black for the Bee Gees. It took producer Arif Mardin threatening to quit to convince Stigwood to release the track. As we wrap up this journey through 1975, it's remarkable to think about how these songs have stood the test of time. Remember to share your own memories of 1975 in the comments below. What were you doing when these songs first hit the airwaves? And don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed these behind-the-scenes stories. Until next time, keep the music playing. And remember, great music never gets old, it just gets better with time.